Hi, I'm Stacey Field, Workforce Engagement Coordinator from the Health and Community Services Workforce Council, and welcome again to the Sector Readiness and Workforce Capacity Initiative online module for workforce planning and development. This is the third and final session of the module, and in this session we'll be exploring the development, implementation and evaluation of your workforce plan. The phases that we'll be exploring in this session include the prioritise and strategise phase, implement and monitor phase, and evaluation phase. Prioritising and strategising your plan includes 3 steps: agreeing on priorities and goals, identifying strategies, and producing your plan. Before you develop your final plan, you need to agree on the priorities and goals of your plan. This involves taking the list of identified gaps generated in the last session and prioritising those gaps to get a few meaningful issues to address. This phase is about choosing what's essential so that you can target your efforts and your investment into what's going to make the most difference, rather than trying to spread yourself too thin by addressing a lot of issues that won't create the change you desire. What's important in this step is to ensure you have clear and transparent criteria to not only support decision making, but also to support change management. It's easier to meet resistance to decisions if you have clear and valid reasons for making them. Criteria can come from a range of sources: your strategic and business plans, which of your identified gaps are the most critical in terms of your organisation's strategic and business goals, a risk assessment, which issues pose the most risk to achieving the workforce you need if you don't address them, or funding agreements, which issues do your funding agreements point to as the most important in terms of moving forward. Your organisational values and preferences can also help. This can be a test of the issues against your organisation's value statement, or through consultation with staff to identify what they hold as most important. I like to think of these criteria as lenses through which to look at the issues that you've identified. The more criteria each issue meets, the more imperative it will be to address. You might like to think about other criteria you can apply from your own organisation. Ideally, what you're trying to achieve here is the identification of about 5 or 6 priority areas for action. These priority areas will be headline issues, such as skills and training, performance and leadership, or attraction and recruitment. At this point, you want to keep it broad. Once you've identified these critical areas, it's important to analyse what each means and identify a goal statement for each priority area. Using the leadership example as a priority area, you might identify the goal: an organisation that fosters transformational leaders. You can see from this statement that it clarifies and gives a bit of life to what you mean by leadership and what you hope to achieve through your plan in relation to that priority. If you do this for each of your priority areas, you'll develop a really powerful vision of what you hope to see at the end of your plan. Your goal statement will also help you to identify the unique actions to achieve that goal. Actions to create an organisation that fosters and supports transformational leaders, for example, might be quite different to the actions you'll undertake to create organisational leadership that directs innovation and change. The same goals relate to leadership, but the flavour and actions of each are different. When you're identifying actions to achieve your goal, it's important to think outside the box. This is where your headline or priority areas can help you. Simple research on best practice in attraction and recruitment, for example, will help identify a vast range of possible actions and strategies that are working for other organisations and other industries. You can then explore a broad range of ideas and choose the ones that best meet your unique goals within the limits of your available resources. Once you've identified your priority areas, your goals and actions, you have a significant part of your workforce plan, and you can start to build the workforce plan document. So what does the workforce plan look like? The answer is that it can look like a whole range of things, but workforce plans have some common key elements. Priority area. These are your identified workforce priorities. Desired outcome or goal. Include your identified goals in relation to each priority area. Proposed actions. List the actions you intend to undertake to achieve your desired outcomes. Timeline. Be realistic within the confines of your workloads, but don't blow it out so far as to lose momentum. Responsibility. It's important that the people who will be actioning your workforce plan are given the resources and time to do it. It has to be embedded into workloads and ways of thinking in order to ensure success. Resources. Outline of what it will take to implement each action. Update. Ensure you have a section in your document to provide updates on progress. This will help later in the monitoring phase of the planning process. Here are some possible examples of how you might put those elements together. There are many more ways to put it together, and you might have some preferred formats within your organisation. The table version is the easiest way to work on developing your workforce plan. Once it's developed and finalised, you can then think about other creative and engaging ways of presenting your plan. Now that you have a published plan, it's time to implement it. The first step in this phase is facilitating the very significant shift from planning mode to implementation mode. It is important to give this some attention. Planning is fun. It's all about ideas, and the commitment of effort and resources isn't real yet. It's easy to fool yourself and others into thinking someone else will do it, or that it will all magically happen simply because you've written it down. Sadly, it won't. You need to work to carry the planning momentum you've generated into the implementation phase. It's good to start. A good start is publishing and celebrating the plan. Acknowledge that you've now stopped planning and it's time to start doing. Another tip is to choose your starting actions carefully. Select those actions that'll help get some early runs on the board and that you can promote to the organisation and build engagement. An important note is that implementation and governance of the plan might involve a completely separate group of people in the lead than those who have developed the plan. A symbolic handover of ownership for the plan can help with the shift to doing. And also important to acknowledge the effort and time that the planning team has put into developing the plan and thank them. In order to begin implementation, actions need to be embedded in staff work plans, realistically and fairly. The first step here is that if you've put somebody's name down in the responsibility column, make sure they know about it and that they have the capacity to undertake that work. If responsibilities for actions are simply added to people's workloads, completion will be a barrier. If the workforce priorities are genuine priorities for your organisation, something might need to be taken out of their individual workloads so that they can focus on these actions. Managing and monitoring the plan is about keeping it alive. It's about regularly, but not necessarily frequently, checking in on the plan's progress, the completion of activities, and problem solving any issues that have arisen. In order to ensure the plan is monitored, it's useful to identify and schedule processes for checking in on the status of the plan and its actions. Reviewing and updating the plan involves a more in-depth look at how the plan's going, maybe twice yearly. It's about keeping the plan relevant and transparent. If your identified actions aren't helping you to get closer to your desired outcomes, you might want to look at updating or amending those actions. It's best not to muck around too much with the priority areas and the desired outcomes though. They should remain fairly constant. They're the backbone of the plan. Make sure you track any updates and report on why you've changed any actions in the update column or in another section of the document. A lot of plans will have an appendix or a section specifically for summarised reviews and amendments over time. Monitoring and reviewing your plan can be an opportunity for continued engagement. Promoting achievements connected to the plan will ensure that people remain aware of it over time. Monitoring and reviewing the plan will support the evaluation of your plan at the end of its term. Likewise, developing an evaluation framework at the beginning of the implementation, as soon as you've completed your plan, will help you monitor and review your plan over time and collect data along the way to support the evaluation. Evaluating the plan is easy. If you know what your desired outcomes are in relation to each priority area, you can clearly identify how you'll know that you've achieved that goal. What you'll see, what will be the evidence that things are different. So from that, you can then think about the questions you need to ask or explore and the sources of information that will provide you with those answers. A simple way to set this out and begin to identify your evaluation questions and methods is by using a simple table. As an example, let's return to leadership. The overall questions here are, have we achieved what we wanted to? You can then begin to conceptualize this question and identify what you'll see if you've achieved your goal. This will lead into identifying the questions you need to ask to build that picture, how you'll answer those questions and when. The timing of your evaluation activities might be scheduled, as in 6 monthly, or it might be triggered by a milestone such as the completion of an activity. Many evaluation tasks will occur throughout the implementation of your plan. Some may even start immediately. For example, measuring improvements in the culture and perception of leadership in your organisation will require that you know what your starting point or your benchmark is. Some of this information may have been collected through the planning process. As I said, for the monitor and review phase, it's important to think about how you'll use and promote the outcomes of your evaluation. Evaluation reports and updates can support further momentum for the plan. The final evaluation report will also complete the cycle and help to inform your next workforce plan. So that completes the final stage of the workforce planning process and the end of our online modules for workforce planning and development. I genuinely hope that this information's been helpful for you. If you would like any further help with either workforce planning or workforce development, the Workforce Council offers a broad range of support and consultation services. Please feel free to contact me at sfield@workforce.org.au or visit workforce.org.au if you would like to find out more. In the meantime, good luck and happy workforce planning.